Okay, I guess we can we can start. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Builders Demo. We're back. It's been a while. We had a lot of stuff in between this episode and the last one, but we're back on track, and we're back with a new episode. Today, we have with us Katana. The guys from Katana here with us. Justin on the marketing side, and Will representing the engineer manager side on Katana. Today, we're going to talk about Katana and Enso, of course, and how we're shaping the future of DeFi UX and FX, basically. Welcome, guys. We're going to explore some collaborations. We're going to show a couple of demos, like how funds are moved around, how you can easily and effortless do deposits into Katana, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. So today we have with us, you're all aware of Lindy. She hasn't missed a single episode of the live streams. Welcome, Lindy. She's our BD at Enso.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I hope you all remember me. I used to be the host, and then I did it with Nana. Now Nicole's the host, and I'm the one representing Enso. Very happy to be here in a different position, and I look forward to what's coming. Give me easy questions, please.
And as well, let's start with Justin on the marketing side of Katana. How are you doing?
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Happy to be here. Yeah, my name is Justin Havens, also known as Crypto Texan on Twitter. Heading up marketing, ecosystem efforts, and been in the crypto space for quite some time. Prior to this, I was at Polygon for about 3.5 years, which makes sense because Katana is incubated by Polygon and GSR. And then prior to that, I was in the traditional banking space for about 13 years. So that kind of shows my transition into the DeFi space. So very happy to be here and talk about DeFi UX and DevX for Enso builders.
Awesome. That's great. Welcome to you as well, Will. Can you introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here. I'm Will. I lead the engineering team at Katana, and much like Justin, prior to that, I was with Polygon, where I was a staff engineer on the DevOps team, and then led the DevOps team. And I've been writing code and building infrastructure for about 3 decades now, and it's been a pretty wild ride. And I'm really excited to see companies like Enso continuing to push the boundaries of what we're able to do.
Let's start with the first question. I think this one I'll forward it to Justin. For those new to Katana, how would you describe like the vision behind the chain?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think I'll just kind of get into the origin story because when it came down to it, there were a lot of people at Polygon who were heavy DeFi users, and we had been interacting with a lot of DeFi builders and other people in the DeFi space, and we saw this verticalization or like sector specific chains where you'd have like a payments chain or an RWA chain or a gaming chain, and then we started to see DeFi chains pop up, and we kind of took a step back and said, what would we really want in a DeFi focused layer 2? And when it came down to it, there were two main things, and that was high yield and deep liquidity, which sounds simple, but when you really start to focus on those two things and reverse engineer a blockchain for those two things, you really start to come up with some really unique ideas for how to do that. And so that's basically what it is. Katana is a DeFi focused layer 2 that's incubated by Polygon Labs and GSR to maximize for those two things: high sustainable yields for users and deep liquidity. And then so in a sense, it's also purpose built to generate revenue, the chain is, and then return that revenue to its users and its ecosystem. And there's a lot of things within our philosophy on how we achieve a lot of these goals around the Vault Bridge around productive TVL and core apps that we could probably talk about a little bit later. But the TLDR version it's a DeFi focused blockchain focused on returning real revenue back to its users through deep liquidity and higher sustained yields.
That's the thing, right? You want to relate the name of Katana. Basically, it's like how you describe the DeFi first, right?
Absolutely.
What exactly does that mean in practice? Like, how do you bring this a use case live? Like, what exactly steps have you taken in that direction?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. I talked about the verticalization or the sector specification of these blockchains that we've started to see, and it's really just counter to what you've seen historically with the general purpose blockchains. So unlike a general purpose blockchain that hosts like hundreds of the same apps effectively, Katana really sees or believes that DeFi has matured to a point where DeFi protocols can be considered as core architecture and infrastructure when you're building a chain. So if you look at Morpho, which is our core lending app, we expect that to be the sole lending app on the blockchain. It's considered part of the architecture of the blockchain. Same thing with SushiSwap from a decentralized exchange perspective. And there's some benefits, quite a few benefits there, both for users and builders as well, where if you're trying to decide where can you get the best yield in a lending and borrowing protocol or the best rates, it's going to be Morpho. So it takes away the guessing game for users. Same thing on trade execution. What's the best price you're going to get? It's going to be on Sushi, on Katana, right? We're focusing all the depth and also the rewards. So what's the best return you're going to get if you want to be a liquidity provider in either one of those? And then from the developer perspective, if you're trying to build on a blockchain, general purpose blockchain, you might have quite a bit of fragmented liquidity across different decentralized exchanges or lending and borrowing protocols. And that means you have to work with multiple different code bases to integrate all of those if you're building on top from a composability standpoint. But on Katana, you just know it's Morpho and Sushi. And it really takes away the guessing game for developers as well. And there's quite a few. I mean, everyone talks about fragmented liquidity from like a layer 2 to layer 2 standpoint, but not enough people, in my opinion, talk about fragmented liquidity, like intra-chain fragmented liquidity within a DeFi ecosystem on a specific blockchain. And that's another thing that this having core apps solves, where if you have 10 different decentralized exchanges, you're having a lot of fragmented markets and fragmented liquidity, which results in poor price execution for the user. And like I said earlier, some headaches for the builders as well. So there's a lot of benefits with this core app thesis that we have. And then a couple other things I'll just kind of touch on briefly on like what this really means to be DeFi first is we have a lot of DeFi mechanisms built into our flywheel that we've kind of seen and adopted from other types of DeFi and projects in the space. Like we've got this concept of Vault Bridge, which it's actually very, very different from what Blast did, but it kind of rhymes in the sense that like bridged assets are generating yield. And then that yield goes to the Katana Foundation, and then that's used to boost the yield that users get in DeFi pools on Katana. And then we have this concept of chain-owned liquidity, which is similar to protocol-owned liquidity that you see in other ecosystems. And even our token, CAT, like we believe in DeFi so deeply that our chain token is a DeFi token. There's like this VE tokenomics model that's kind of similar to Curve and Aerodrome that we will be implementing here in the next few months or so. Don't quote me on the engineering time. Sorry, Will. I'm not trying to give you any.
We all know
No pressure. No pressure.
We're working on it. But it will give users the opportunity to stake their CAT to vote where future CAT emissions go throughout the entire Katana DeFi ecosystem, starting just with Sushi, but later expanding out. And then those users earn fees for the pools that they voted for. So yeah, all this to say, We've thought about this quite a bit, quite extensively, and we want this to be the most DeFi native chain possible. And all of this goes towards achieving those two primary benefits I said early on, which is high yield and deep liquidity for the users.
You mentioned liquidity fragmentation. How does consolidating core functions like automated market makers and lending, how they improve the overall DeFi experience for users?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, when you have significant depth in an automated market maker for a specific market, there's two pretty big benefits here. Number one is the price, the slippage is significantly reduced, especially when you're using like a sushi swap V3 model, which is what we have on Katana, and you need to kind of maintain like tight bands. That just creates even more liquidity depth. And then we also partner with quite a bit of ALMs like CharmFi, Steer Protocol, the Deep, and Gamma Strategies to further like make that TVL more productive and efficient as well. And so there's reduced slippage. And then on the lending and borrowing side, the more liquidity depth you have in an AMM, the more willing a vault curator on Morpho is going to be to create a vault for that specific asset, because they need significant liquidity depth to execute on liquidations, right? If there's a risk that they won't be able to execute a liquidation because of the liquidity depth on Sushi Swap, then it's just a big risk for them that they're not going to take. Okay, and so there's those two benefits for deep liquidity on Sushi on an AMM, and on the lending and borrowing side, when you've got deep liquidity in like being supplied into a lending market, what you get is a little bit more predictability on what the rates are going to be for borrowers, which is also very, very important. That's another big concept that flows into or another big feature that flows into our concept of chain-owned liquidity, where a portion of the revenues generated by the chain go into this basically treasury fund of assets, LP positions that are managed by the Katana Foundation, which go into Sushi Swap pools to maintain that baseline liquidity in depth. And it goes into Morpho pools to maintain baseline liquidity in depth. And that just helps to provide consistent and lower borrowing rates for users long-term.
I think there's another benefit here as well that applies specifically to builders using Enso because of the number of parallels we've got here. And it's increased focus. You know, like if you, just like when you're building with Enso, you've built tools that abstract away a lot of the different things that have to happen to build a blockchain app so that the developers can focus on just what's unique about their app. They can focus on like their business logic or their application logic, and they don't have to deal with, you know, a lot of the underlying complexities of making that happen. Same thing with liquidity fragmentation. If you're building on Katana and you need to work with the lending provider, you don't have to spend development cycles researching who's doing lending on Katana and are they reputable, what are their rates that they're returning, are they going to be with you a year from now? You just come to Katana and you start using Morpho and you keep building your app and focusing on your value proposition that makes you successful to your customers.
I mean, that's the thing that matters at the end of the day, right?
Right, yeah.
Well, so one thing that that you mentioned and Katana emphasizes is real yield and sustainable user incentives, like this holy balance, right? How do you approach that differently, like from other ecosystems?
That's a good question. Probably one of my favorite questions. And I feel like I've been rambling, so I'm going to try to keep this one a little bit shorter. But I'll say that most chains rely pretty much solely on token emissions that you know, to attract liquidity to their ecosystems. And then the issue there is it's just not a sustainable model, where once you taper those emissions or once you pull those emissions away, that liquidity is going to leave because that's mercenary capital. And, you know, show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcome. You give me higher yield, I'm going to deposit. You take away that yield, I'm going to withdraw. That's just how it works. And so Katana's model is powered by, I would say, 4 primary revenue drivers that are then recycled back into the ecosystem to provide this deep liquidity and high yield that we keep talking about. Number 1 is Vault Bridge on Ethereum, which routes real yield from vaults on Ethereum to Katana to boost yield. AUSD is the Katana's native stablecoin that's minted natively on Katana. That's backed by off-chain US treasuries. A portion of the revenue from those US treasuries goes to the Katana Foundation, which is then used to boost yield. Number 3, we talked about chain-owned liquidity. Well, when we're deploying that chain-owned liquidity, that earns revenue, that earns yield. So that is either compounded into more chain-owned liquidity, creating more depth, or we can redirect that to boost pools if we need. Just determines, just based on the needs of the ecosystem at that time. And then we've got sequencer fees. All L2s have sequencer fees. Where do they go? We don't know. But on Katana, they go back into the ecosystem, either boosting yield or creating more liquidity depth. We're also emitting CAT tokens as well. So not a revenue source, but another aspect. I think over time, we would like to scale back the amount of emissions that we are using, the amount of CAT that we're using to boost pools in the DeFi ecosystem, and replace that with these real yield sources, kind of reducing the sell pressure of the CAT token over time. And so while most chains, TLDR, in summary, while most chains rely on just emissions, Katana has emissions plus those 4 revenue drivers that I mentioned.
That's a great point, because as you mentioned, we've seen it many times how short-term incentives attract huge TVL, and then it just crashes once they're over. So balance here, it's key, and sustainable incentives. That's the ultimate goal. That question: what kind of experiences are you trying to create for DeFi users on Katana?
Yeah, I'll talk about DeFi users real quick, and then I'll get Will to talk about DeFi developers. But I would say, we have a web app, app.katana.network. It's in beta right now. We're working on version 1, and we'll be creating other versions out in the future. But we want to make DeFi a little bit more intuitive and a little bit more user-friendly, because it is still... when I try to get my friends involved, or, my family involved, it's like, okay, download this wallet. You got to bridge assets from Ethereum to Katana. And then you've got to, there's too many steps right now. And then even for DeFi users, you got to go to different front ends to achieve all, you've got to check all these rates, and you've got to go different front ends to connect your wallet. We want to be able to surface a lot of Katana's yield opportunities through the Katana web app. We want people to be able to swap through the web app, maybe make predictions in a prediction market, maybe mint an NFT. There's a lot of opportunities, but we really want to make it the one-stop shop for Katana. And then that's for like more crypto noobs or crypto novices. And then, I'm going to use it too. But even outside of that, we've got the ecosystem explore page that, if you're looking for a little bit more degen strategies, or you're a more experienced DeFi user, you can tap into those and explore our ecosystem and kind of see where those yield opportunities are as well. So I think, I would say the majority of our marketing efforts is going more towards institutions and DeFi natives, but it's increasingly becoming more DeFi novices, DeFi noobs, crypto noobs as we roll out more and more versions of the web app. Will, would love to get your thoughts on that too, and maybe talk about how the DeFi developer aspect works.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to like hone in on those 2 experiences and that we're trying to cater for. With your experienced users, I want to give them the tools and opportunities so that they have complete flexibility and control over what they're trying to build or how they're trying to manage their assets. And they can just take a look at the risk and reward and make their own decisions. And that kind of fits along the lines of how DeFi is currently. And so we have to just be really honest and say, like, everyone who's willing to do that is already in DeFi. If we're going to bring DeFi to new people or expand the number of DeFi users there that exist, we have to create an environment with guardrails so you can bring in people who aren't DeFi natives and put them into an environment with guardrails where they can be successful and they can start seeing the benefits of it, but they can't accidentally stumble off into something that's going to cause them grief and force them to leave DeFi forever. And then once they better understand the system, they can start taking those guardrails down themselves. And I think that ties into the developer ecosystem environment. So we have all of these primitives set up and these core apps set up that they can interact with, and they can safely get their feet wet and build their confidence with it. And then over on the DevRel side, we've got an amazing DevRel team who's just pushing out tons of documentation and tons of tools that make it easy for people to start building on Katana. We've got like the MCP agent or the MCP server over there, so you can leverage AI in your build process and use that to develop and iterate faster, because it's context aware, it knows how the system operates. And then going back to our earlier thing, that we've got these core apps that you can just leverage those core apps and not have to spend tons of time figuring out what's going to work, what's not going to work, what's trustworthy and what isn't.
Lindy, question for you. Now that Enso is live on Katana, can you explain what that means for the ecosystem?
Yeah, so Enso being live in Katana means that we support the Katana apps. So so just a quick introduction about Enso for those first time watching our builders demo. What we are, you can think of us as a DeFi aggregator. Enso is a network in which builders and also users can get access to all kinds of DeFi. So for example, swapping, bridging, lending, borrowing, deposit, really all kinds of actions, and even complex things such as looping, complex rebalancing strategies, etc. Right? So Enso being live on Katana, to answer your question, it means that all these will be available on Katana through Katana apps. So just now we mentioned about Morpho and SushiSwap. So let's say a new user into Katana. He comes from Ethereum. He has no idea what Katana is. He only knows that, okay, there are rewards on Sushi, so I need to add liquidity. So how do I do that? And so what Enso does is that we make things easy. We make things easy and intuitive for the user. So we do all sorts of extractions on the front end as well as on the back end. So that's for the end user. And then for the developers, so let's say you come to Katana and let's say Charm Finance, right? An example would be Charm Finance. Charm Finance is a project that is not a core Katana app, but it assists SushiSwap in it's called an ALM, Automated Liquidity Management. So what it does is that it has some vaults in which the user has to deposit a SushiSwap LP token. Okay, so this is like super complex for a new user. What is a SushiSwap, number one, and what is SushiSwap LP token, number two? So what we do is that we integrate with Charm to facilitate a ZEP deposit straight into the Charm 5 vaults. So the user doesn't even have to know what is LP, how to get the LP. He doesn't even have to already have assets on Katana. He can just do a ZEP deposit using USDC from Ethereum. All he has to do is go to Charm5, click the button to zap in, and it's done. So that's just one example of what it means for apps on Katana. And of course, we work with all the other major ARMs as well, like the Deep. The other one is, what's the other one? Steer. Yeah, so Steer as well. And there's even a prediction market called Foresight on Katana, and we are also assisting them to do that deposits, also cross-chain.
We actually, a little bit later, in a couple of minutes, we're going to see exactly how that works, like how effortless it's actually to move all your assets from, let's say, Ethereum, from different positions directly into Katana. Lindy, you mentioned that So Enso often described as the universal engine of Web3, right? Can you expand a little bit more on that idea?
Okay, so what it means by universal engine. So what we understand by universal, it means that everything, right? Everything that exists constitutes the universe. So what we are is the universal engine of Web3. Whatever you want to do under the sun in Web3, we would do it for you. If you cannot find a way to do it, we would find a way together with you. So, so typically, if you look at our documentation, there's a list of a few actions, typical actions in which we facilitate. For example, as I mentioned previously, I'll say it again: swap, bridge, borrow, lend, deposit, add liquidity, etc., etc. Now let's give you. I'll give you another example of this protocol called Reservoir. So what it is a stable coin. So it has the stable coin RUSD and staked RUSD. And then they had this idea in which they wanted to do something that is not an action that already exists out of the box from Enso. But what we did was we worked very closely with them together to customize a use case for them. So in the context of Katana, so what they are is that they are a stablecoin, right? And then they already have a minting token on Ethereum. And then now they want to expand to Katana because Katana has yield. Katana was specifically made for DeFi, specifically made for yield. And so they saw this opportunity and they wanted to expand to Katana. But they were a bit constrained by resources and dev resources and capital. Because typically, if you want to expand your stablecoin to a new chain, you would have to seed a DEX liquidity pool or you have to have a new minting contract, which is complex, which takes time, and it takes capital. So what we did was we did a way for them. It's called One Stable. So how we did for them was that the users are able to deposit on Katana. Katana users can deposit any asset on Katana. We bridge it over to Ethereum to mint the stable coin, and then in the same step, we bridge it back to Katana, and they can receive the stable coin there and put it in Morpho, or put it in SushiSwap, or put it anywhere they want to earn yield. And to the user, it's just a one click. And it doesn't matter where the user comes from. The end goal is that the user will be able to tap DeFi on Katana. The user can come from Barachain, the user can come from Plume, come from Ethereum, come from anywhere in the world, anywhere in the universe. But he ends up on Katana and he earns Katana yield.
And for developers building on Katana, what advantages do they get by building with Enso instead of like doing custom integrations like one by one?
Yeah, so it's not a one or the other, right? So it's not like they can build with Enso instead of custom integrations. Is they can build with Enso and they can have custom integrations. So if you do not want custom integrations, or you just want something out of the box, just something plug and play, like you want it today, you want it immediately. So we have this, the easiest way is that we have this endpoint called Route, ROUTE, in which all you have to do as a developer is you input what is the beginning token and what is the end token. So for example, you are a vault, you are a yield optimizer. So you have a vault in which the vault has a receipt token, or you are a DEX and your DEX pool has a receipt token, or you are an anything and then the output is a receipt token. So what we do is that the user will be able to zap in from anywhere, anything. So even if the user doesn't have any token balance, all he has is another receipt token. So if you want him to unwind the position and then do some complex mechanism and then finally deposit in your protocol, good luck, he's not going to do it. So, but if you were to provide a single click button in which the undoing of his existing position, the converting of the tokens and the deposit is all condensed into one click, then yes, you just got yourself a new user today. So this is how Enso helps. And all you have to do is a route endpoint, tell the algo what's the token in and what's the token out, and in between the algo will do it all for you.
That's awesome. So we talked about zapping, we talked about assets, moving funds around. Let's actually I think it's good to give, at least from on my side, I'm a visual learner, right? So let's actually showcase how everything that we've talked like in the last 20, 30 minutes, how actually it works, right? What exactly a user sees and what they get, right? So let me, I'll share my screen here. So for example, a little bit earlier, we talked about Charm. For example, this is a vault, which is USDC and ETH. So let's say, for example, we talked about, oh, hey, I just want to have some funds, let's say, on Ethereum, right? I'm on Ethereum mainnet, and I would like to move some funds into this vault that it's located in Katana. So what do we have to do? Well, we select the assets that we like to use. For example, we could use Ethereum, which is the easiest one. We also could use, in case, like for example, if you have a LP position on Curve here, for example, I have one LP position on Curve, which is ETH with STETH. You can also like move directly that. So how it works, for example, the easiest example here with Ethereum. Let's say we have some ETH here on mainnet. Let's say 0.1 ETH. We just need to select then where those funds want to go. As we mentioned, we are here in this vault. And in a matter of seconds, you will get the shortest and the best way how to reach that vault and directly deposit into it. So, Lindy, what is happening exactly here? What steps are we saving in order to get directly here?
Yeah, so what happens is that if whatever that you put into whatever is the input token, we would convert it into such a token that is required for the deposit into the protocol, which in this case is VB USDC and VB ETH. So what happens in let's say this example, the input token is ETH. So okay, let's use another example. ETH is too easy. Let's say the input token is USDT. So what the protocol would do is to split this USDT into two, because you need two tokens to deposit here in SushiSwap pool. So I will split the USDT into two parts, X% for the VB USDC and X% for the VB ETH. So it might not be 50-50. Typically, it would be 50-50 if it's a V2, but sometimes in V3, it's not 50-50. So whatever it is, the algo will calculate the percentage. So the user does not have to deal with this headache. So there will be two parts, and then the first part, it will be X amount of USDT, right? So this USDT will be converted to VB USDC, and the other part of the USDT will be converted to VB ETH. And then the VB USDC and the VB ETH will be deposited in SushiSwap. Yeah, and then finally it's done. And then for the end user, you don't need to know anything. You don't need to approve every single step. All you need to do is that you will see the route will be displayed for you. You just approve.
And that's where the magic happens, right? You approve, you bridge, and that's it. You don't need to worry about what happens in between, like where your tokens are going, how many protocols you need to interact in between. It's just a couple of clicks and you're where you want to be, basically.
Yeah. You don't need to go and have a headache over which is the best DEX that I can use to swap the USDT into USDC, or where do I go to convert the USDT into ETH, or even which bridge do I use to bridge it over to Katana. So all this is being done by algo. Whatever is the most efficient way, that will be the way. And then best of all is that because we have a partnership with TransFi, right? So after the user deposits, without TransFi, the user would have to go and manage the range. So let's say it goes out of range, and then if you did not manage it, you would stop earning your rewards. And you have to go and manually shift it constantly, such that you can continually be earning rewards. So what TransFi does is that they manage it for you, such that you don't have to go and manually do it yourself. So what you do is you just park your assets there, and that's it.
And let's also have a quick look on Turtle, the Summarized Call campaign that is running right now on Katana. Kind of works very, very similar to what we just saw on Charm. You have all the Katana vaults that are available right now. As you see, you can pick between different stable coins or WBTC, WETH. And it's as easy as you deposit, you pick the asset that you have available right now, and You just select the amount, and everything else it's taken care for you. Deposits are done directly. Of course, the roads are powered by Enso, and this is everything you need to do. This is everything you need to know. There are no further complications that what you're actually seeing right now on your screen.
Yep. And the best of all is that we can do it in size, any amount. So it doesn't matter if it's 1 cent that you're depositing or $10 million. We regularly route 6-7 digits for total. That has not been a problem, and it's really really fast. We don't have to wait like 3-4 hours. And then meanwhile, you sit there worrying about what happened to my assets and my assets lost forever. No, you just click, and within a few minutes, a few seconds actually, and then it's done.
I think one of the great things here is just anyone who's been building apps for a while understands how many steps it takes to pull off that transaction. But people who are new to building dApps are just going to assume that this is the way that it's always operated, and because of tools like Enso, a year from now, building apps for crypto is just going to be a completely different landscape.
Yeah, well said, because you have experience in building. So I encounter a lot of people who exactly as you said, they'll tell me they have all sorts of magnificent plans. We're going to do this, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then we're all going to do it in-house, and then we don't need your help. Okay, and then after that, 3 months later, nothing is shipped. Maybe 0.5% or a watered down version of like 20% of what they said they want to ship, and they're like, okay, why don't, and I'm like, okay, why don't we explore this again, and we can help you, we'll support you. And within like 1 week, everything is up. So I would encourage people to go and develop by themselves. Why not, right? Go and find out how difficult it is, and then they can appreciate us all the more.
Yeah, for sure. Because another thing that you get by doing that is the robustness and the battle-tested code behind Enso. You can build this yourself as your own team, but then you've got to go through your own security audits. You've got to go through your own scalability and load testing and take all that on yourself. Or if you use something like Enso, you get to leverage the work that you have already done for that and take advantage of everyone else building on the system and build on top of that instead of just building off on your own.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, for every action that you do, there's always opportunity cost. You could do everything right. Like I could plant my own vegetables. Why do I go to the market to buy it? Right? It's not that I can't. It's just that I have better things to do. So like,
Right.
why swap users for Zap deposits? They can just build it themselves. I mean, they have been around. They're an OG. They have the resources. They have the capability. They can do it. But their core business is building a DEX, not building swap abstractions. So yeah, why don't just let somebody else do it?
Yeah, and all the time you're saving, right? And you can focus on actually what your end goal is. You just abstract all that part. So let's talk a little bit. I'm going to leave this question a little bit open for everyone. Do you think the future of DeFi is about building more apps or making the existing ones work better?
I think it 100% depends on the team, because once you build something, you lose that beginner's mindset, and that makes it hard to see things the way a new user of your application would see it. And so for existing teams and existing applications that can retain that beginner's mindset, making their existing apps better is the right way to approach it. And for those that can't, new people are going to see the opportunities there. They're going to come in and build new apps that address those opportunities, solve those problems that the existing apps aren't, and then take that market share from them.
What
Yeah,
about
I
you?
think I think it's a really good question. I think that there's still a lot of opportunity and a lot of ideas that haven't quite received product market fit in the DeFi ecosystem, just because we're still a little bit low on the adoption curve, in my opinion. And as things begin to scale and more liquidity and capital comes into the system, those those a little bit more niche opportunities are going to find a little bit more product market fit, right? It just depends on like the adoption curve and the part of the cycle that we're in. And I would say that from the Katana point of view, where we want to see a lot of the innovation is on the composability layer, right? We've got Morpho in Sushi. We'll have a perps protocol, and we've got Kinsei, who's also a core app, our token launchpad. You know, we've got these 4 core apps that we consider infrastructure in the architecture of our blockchain. And we want to see like improved UX, improved UI, building on top of those. We want to see new ideas and innovations of building on top of these. And when we're concentrating all that liquidity and rewards into those apps and into the pools on those apps, it makes it a little bit easier to build from a composability point of view. And that's where we want to see a lot of the innovation. And all that to be said, that, you know, Katana is completely open source and permissionless, and anyone can deploy any app that they want to. And there's not, and you know, we want them to. But I think that's where we're going to put a lot of our efforts and rewards behind, is on the core apps and the composability layer.
That's a really really interesting point of view. What about, so we have couple of questions from community members on our live stream on X. What is next for Katana? What can we expect from you guys?
That's a good question. I would say, like I said, we're in beta right now as far as the app is concerned. V1 of the app will be coming soon, so we've got that. There's a product launch, an activation that we have in December that I can't really talk about, but that's also very exciting. Look out for the alpha on Twitter. And then, you know, we also have our TGE, where the cat token becomes transferable, because users can earn the cat token right now by various different ways, participating in our Kaito campaign, or, you know, using your assets on Katana, deploying into vaults and other strategies. But that becomes transferable before February 2026, which is the date that is approaching quickly. So that's another date to keep in mind. We're also, you know, we're looking for the right perps decks to deploy on Katana as a core application. So that'll be coming down the pipeline. And then we've got a couple other initiatives and partnerships that we're working on that we can't really touch on, but those are the main ones that I can talk about publicly.
Yeah, of course. It makes sense. What about you, Lindy? What can you share about Enso's future? What can we expect?
Okay, I can share with you. Recently, we have been launching a lot of very interesting new sort of like tools. I would say standalone tools. First of all, we have Checkout, which is a tool that so what people know Enso of and what people have been using Enso a lot of is Zap deposits, as we have done in the demo. So other than users being able to deposit from other tokens and other chains, we also added a way in which users can deposit from their SEX deposits. So let's say they have a SEX wallet in Binance or Kraken, Coinbase, etc. They would be able to use the assets there to deposit directly in a perp DEX or in a DEX pool. So really just any platform in DeFi. So it actually, SEX users and DeFi users are not mutually exclusive. There are a lot of SEX users that they want to use DeFi, just that they don't know how to use DeFi, and they are reluctant to try. And why I say this, I mean, SEX exists not just for buying and selling. SEX people actually also do DeFi. And you know, every SEX has their own staking, has their own kind of DeFi, but not really DeFi because it's on a SEX. So I mean, it means that they have the desire and they have the interest in DeFi type of yield, just that they don't know how to do it. But if there's a way that it can make it easier for them, such that it feels like it is a one-click thing, just like they one-click in the SEX, but if they can do it in DeFi, then why not? So this is what we're trying to do. And we recently also TGE, and we are on all the main exchanges. So all these exchange users, they know us, they know Enso because we got listed there and they are trading Enso token. So we would be wanting to push out this to introduce this to our sex users, and in a way it will benefit to our current partners as well because new users will flow to Katana, to whichever other partners that we have. So that's one thing. And another thing that we're really working on hard for Enso with specific to Katana is to onboard more assets onto Katana. So just previously I mentioned about Reservoir that we onboarded. We helped them to onboard to Katana really easily without all these additional capital and all this additional work, right? So in doing the bridging, we were able to bring users from other chains into Katana. So likewise, we want to do that with other stablecoins and other LSTs or whatever other asset issuers to bring all of them and their communities onto Katana, so that they also can interact with SushiSwap, they also can interact with Morpho, etc., and earn yield.
Can you share if there will be, I don't know if you can share that, I'm going to ask. Will there be new protocols that will be integrated into Katana through Enso in the coming months, 1 or 2 months? Anything you can share potentially? That's an audience question from X as well. Any?
Oh, was that directed to me or
general question to the three of you?
I know that we've made quite a few introductions to teams already deployed on to Katana and Enso, or that will be deploying. But once the conversations get, once those introductions are made, we just kind of wait for those to work out. But I mean, Enso is such a great product, and it makes it so much easier for developers to execute the type of transactions like you were showing in the demo, that it just it just makes sense. So I would expect to see quite a few more Enso integrations with projects deploying or that have already deployed on Katana soon.
Yeah, I do expect quite a few. We are on the official Katana docs. So, and we also have a public TG group. Whoever is thinking of building on Katana, they can refer to the documentation on Enso documentation and also Katana documentation. And they also can join our TG group and feel free to ask questions there.
Since you mentioned it, a question come up to my mind, like how can developers start building with Enso right now? Since we talked about those that are already in touch, what about those that, let's say, they're just watching this live stream or the replay later on YouTube? How can they start right away?
So it's listed on the Katana docs, some getting started steps there. But honestly, the way I did this personally, after getting introduced to y'all, I was like, man, I'm going to check this out. I pointed my AI agent to the Katana docs and told it that I wanted to use Enso, and then just did a pair coding session with my AI agent and integrated Enso into a little app that I built just to understand how it worked, and it worked great.
I imagine it did not take a lot of time.
No, we're talking hours here. We're talking hours. And that was all using, I'd never used Enso before, so the learning curve didn't exist. And yeah, it was vibe coding, quote unquote, trademark.
That's awesome. So easy an AI could do it, is what you're saying.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's true. Like this, we get a lot of feedback as well on that matter. And it's really amazing and inspiring, to see people how they can get over it, right? Super easy. Sadly, this was the last question that we received for today's live stream. Thank you very much. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Will and Lindy, for joining us. It was a great live stream. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you, everyone, as well, for joining us. Don't forget to follow Katana on X at Katana with K, and as well as at Enso Build. And yeah, hope to see you again soon with some new integrations, and see how everything evolves in the future.
Oh yeah, thank you. See you again
Thank
next
you, everyone.
episode.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.